Welcome to the podcast today, Mike Taylor. Mike Taylor most recently coached Hamburg Towers of the German ProA league, which just advanced into the Bundesliga league for next season. And since 2014, he has also coached Poland's national team. And Coach, first off, welcome to the podcast. And secondly, let's get into this. 52 years since Poland qualified for a major competition like this. So welcome to the podcast, and let's get into some Polish basketball.
Thank you, Chris. Really happy to be here. And yeah, it's been a great year. Obviously, the first big accomplishment was getting Poland back to the World Cup, second in Polish history, first time in 52 years, as you said. Really big accomplishment for Polish basketball. We hope it can help grow the game in the country. And what I'm most proud about that is I'm happy and thankful the guys, the veteran players, the coaches, Łukasz Koszarek, Adam Wyszynski, Mateusz Panika, all the players that have contributed, they're going to be remembered for accomplishing something really big for their country in their career.
Well, it's great. And Coach, we're going to go a lot of different places in the podcast, but maybe let's start with a little bit of the culture piece. How does an American coach come into the situation in Poland in 2014 and get them on the right track towards this major accomplishment? What are some of the practical things that you did to help bring this group together and get them to this point of success?
Yeah, I think when I first got there, I had kind of had an idea of where Polish basketball was. I was 4 years an assistant with the Czech Republic national team, and in 2013 Eurobasket in Celje, Slovenia, we were in the same group, and Lubos Barton hit a game-winning three-point shot for us from the corner, and we beat Poland. Poland had super high expectations. They had both Marcin Gortat, Maciek Lampe. They had a team with high expectations that really underperformed. And when I came in that summer, there was a lot of negativity around the national team. People were not happy with the things going on around the team, the players, the federation. No one was really working together. The main point that we tried to get it, the first step was to really try to create a positive environment, a positive atmosphere around the team. And that first year was tough. We had a lot of guys that were very reluctant to play or hesitant to play. A couple key players did not play, but whereas the summer before for Eurobasket, they had a bunch of big name players and expectations. The next year, we did not have those big name players and our expectations were low. We upset Germany twice and won our group. So we qualified for Eurobasket 2015. And I think that was the first steps that everybody started to see, hey, there's some positive things going on around the team. And I think the other point was that the coaching style that I kind of brought to Poland was more of a modern American coaching style, very positive, very player friendly, very, trying to build confidence in the team and build confidence in the players, building the players up. And I think the players really responded well. It was something that was different for them. So for me, the first step was kind of creating that positive atmosphere and that culture around the team about the way we wanted things to be done. And I think that was the first part of it that kind of got things going in the right direction.
It's great. We can talk about this a little bit, but did the players struggle a little bit initially with you being positive? Because I found that in different situations where I come into and they're used to an old school coach or, a coach that may be more task oriented. And then when you're positive, it's almost confronting to them, which is strange to say, but did you experience that?
Yeah, definitely. I think that the culture of coaching and the way organizations are run in Poland is, let's say very Eastern European. It's old school. There's lots of negative extrinsic motivation or, positive extrinsic motivation. It's things from the outside, and a relationship-based coach, a positive coach. And I think that, you try to hit more for the intrinsic to get people to love to go to the gym, to get people to love to have practice and really love to be a part of the team. I think that the positivity at first was some guys really struggled with it, but, you're always going to have that group of people that are, critical, that are second guessing. They're always going to, kind of look at something and say, hey, that's not the way it should be because it's new to them or it's different for them. So I think that without a doubt, there were some hurdles we had to overcome. But, it's like anything, you put one good summer on the board, you qualify for the Eurobasket. Then in the Eurobasket in France, we advanced out of our group and played well and lost to the eventual champion Spain. Pau Gasol had a great game. And people start to see, hey, there's something going here. And the next year we come back and win the group again, qualify for the next Eurobasket, and pretty soon it's consistent. And those, let's say, doubters or people who are focused on more like, hey, we have to do this because it's always been done that way, there's less and less power for their argument. And I just felt like the positive approach was like a breath of fresh air for these guys. There was not a coach that was really confronting them or always against them. There was a coach that was trying to get to know them and put them in a position to be successful and help them and support them. And it's not just me, it's the entire staff. I felt like it was like the players were really happy to have the experience of the new coaching style.
It's great to hear. I mean, certainly that's the way modern coaching should be in that sense. And I think we're all moving that way. But the realities of that, I think, is what's important for coaches to hear. And Coach, I'm curious because when we talk about preparing for the World Cup or preparing for any international tournament, I think there's a lot of parallels to what, high school coaches, AAU coaches in our country and, for any international competition anywhere, just these short preparation windows to get stuff ready to be able to play a game in a really short time. Can you talk about what you focus on in that time frame to be able to prepare your team the best you can in really a short period of time?
Yeah, I think it's like any situation, you have to adapt to, what the circumstances are. And what we've seen with the national teams the last few years is that my first 3 years with Poland, we had the old style, the old structure, where it was something that I really enjoyed. Let's say 2 weeks of training camp, and then what we tried to do is create environmental comfort for the players so that they understood what was coming and they knew what the situation was. They knew how we would prepare and how we would build up the team. So our way, we would have a training camp in an isolated part of Poland, a great facility, and we could just really focus on our team and building up the roles and the system, along with being, I think isolated out there and focusing on that. We tried to be a really task-oriented team. So we had a very detail-oriented system, offensively, defensively. The players had to work at to learn. And in those 2 weeks of training camp, really try to focus these guys in on learning the systems, offensive, defensively, and then also the team aspects of it. And after, we had the training camp, it would be 2 games, at home to kind of show off the team to Poland, show off the team to the country. I think it's important the next generation of players see their current national team players and gives them something to aspire to and dream towards, And then what we'd like to do would be play different, let's say 3 weekends of really tough competition away tournaments where those games are really difficult. The environments can be tough. You're testing yourselves in a lot of different ways. And then we would finish up our preparation with a home tournament, let's say that were more winnable games to build up some self-confidence and get a great feeling for the team going into the competition. So this was kind of our model for 3 years. And during those times, I felt like the players got very comfortable and really bought in and really enjoyed the whole process of it, which was really important to me. I think we established a culture, a way that we worked, a way that the Polish national team, if somebody asked them, hey, how do you guys prepare? The guys could break it down for them and explain it. But then as FIBA changed to the in-season windows, this became different. This became where you were more focused on you would bring just your, let's say, your 12 players. And you would be really, streamline your system and really lock in on, hey, we need to prepare for these games. The first meeting was not about team building. The first meeting was a scouting report game plan meeting for the team you're playing, the opponent, 2 days away. So the mentality of the whole approach, like, hey, we're building up with the training camps and with the game, the preparation games as compared to the windows was very, very different. But I think, what we've done with Poland over the 6 years, we've tried to be aware of the transition from, one generation to the next generation. And for example, in the windows, you don't have time to be aware of that, and we've really relied on our core, which was developed, not only through the national team training camps, but also we established a B team, which we've had some training camps with the younger next generation players and played some games with them, and they'll have the same terminology system. So I think you kind of look at the whole big picture mentality in terms of, hey, building up your team, preparing your team. We've been very task oriented and focused on system, getting the players to learn the system. I think it gives them something to work together and grow together towards. It keeps them focused on something. And then also to the environmental comfort of establishing a way that we build up for these tournaments that has been good for us over my years. So this has kind of been the things that we focused on, knowing the difference of the summer window where you have more time or the in-season window where you just got to hit the ground running right away and there's no time to waste. Get a team ready for a big game 2 days away. These are things that I think have been important for us over the last few years.
And you mentioned task-oriented as a focus in the sense that obviously you're dealing with pros, so they can, I wouldn't say skip the steps is necessarily the way to say it, but they come in with some existing skills and some existing knowledge so that you can focus on the task more than anything. But when you're considering what you're going to run and the system that you're going to run, how much of it is determined by your philosophy versus the talent that you have in place when you're talking about these short preparation windows?
You know, the one thing that I really like about our system, Chris, is that it's got a lot of flexibility and a lot of versatility to it. So, you know, for example, as we get different players into the roster, they may have different strengths or limitations, and you always want to try to help your guys play to their strengths. So as they learn and work together on the system and they start to understand, hey, this is our transition game. These are our half-court set plays. Here's our sideline, end-line, zone attack. As you start to work on all these different details, the natural strengths of the players lead them towards different plays. So, for example, we've run the same system with the Hamburg Towers that we ran with the Polish national team. And obviously the Polish national team is a little higher caliber player, more experienced. They can do different things, let's say on a deeper system level. But at the heart of it, it's the same. And in the same way, you have players with different strengths. So within the system, these guys will naturally do something better. So this is kind of as you start working in training camp, you start working at your, you know, putting in your system and you say, hey, these guys like to run this or they're good at running this. And then you start to work at that. And then if you take it to the next step of, okay, here's our game plan. We're attacking our opponent and we want to establish the post or we want to run these pick and roll situations. So I think it starts with the players' natural strengths and abilities they have. They do certain things well, so you emphasize those things. And then as you start to game plan for your opponent and look where you can attack them and gain some advantages, then, you know, you kind of put it all together.
Yeah, it's an interesting process, but clearly there's got to be some flexibility, as you said, in terms of specific opponent prep. And I guess that's been another curious part of this is that you know your group in advance of a lot of your training now. So do you specifically game plan in advance, knowing what you're going to do? Or is the focus, hey, let's become the best team we can become prior to this, and then we'll focus on the opponent when we get to that point?
You know, I think we've always taken it from the step that we're going to try to, you know, build up our team in the right way and try to be thorough in how we establish our team, focusing on our team. And then I think at the right time where you start your game plan preparation, you know, then you start to really lock in on, okay, here's our game plan details. These are the areas we want to attack them. These are the things we want to do to be successful in the game. I feel like, you know, it's important that you focus on your own team. I feel like it's important you develop your team to be the best version of itself. And I think if you spend too much time worrying about what your opponents are doing, you kind of lose some of that. The one thing that we'll do with multiple games on a weekend, let's say you have some back-to-back games or you have several days to practice and prepare, you know, when you know you're going to face certain actions or certain plays, maybe you don't tell the guys what opponent is running this play or that play, but you mix 2 or 3 teams' actions together in a defensive segment where they get the experience and they see it. And then as you begin with the short preparation time before the game, maybe in a walkthrough or video session, you can show these guys like, hey, remember we talked about this in practice on Monday. And, you know, again, you want to keep guys focused, but I like to get them repetitions and they see things so they react better game to game and situation to situation. I think if you ask and you say, hey, you know, what's your philosophy? What's your percentage? You know, we're more like 70% on our team, 30% on our opponents and try to keep it like that. But in training camp, there's no real discussion of what your opponents are doing. It's just kind of focusing on building up, you know, our team and our system and how we're going to play, what we're going to do. But as a coach, if you're prepared and you know your opponents and you've got that pre-scout, you know, there's times where you can maybe get some of these repetitions in by working ahead and being there.
So you mentioned a flexible system. And can you give us a very specific example of what you mean by that? Because I think sometimes coaches say it, but they're not really understanding what that means in terms of that. So can you give us a very
Yeah,
specific example?
I think, for me, an example would be, your opponents and coaches, everybody's working hard. Everybody's trying to prepare and do their best. And, let's say a team walks through 5 or 6 plays of their opponent and they're really trying to take these plays away. Like, hey, these are the important plays that we want to stop for this game. So when they look at our team and let's say they take away a certain action, maybe it's a pick and roll play or whatever. If they're trying to game plan to take that away, then what we like to say is we'll give you that play. You can take that play because we're going to create that same pick and roll situation from a different formation or from a maybe on a second side of a play or somewhere else. So this is the type of flexibility that I think is important for a team, having the ability to adapt offensively, against different types of defenses. If a team is pressuring you, if a team is changing defenses, I think that you've got to be able to have that flexibility within your offense. And a lot of times, Chris, I think that, you talk about in-game adjustments from coaches, and these are the types of things that a really good system, a versatile system that has that flexibility, that has that versatility, you're going to be that coach that can really make those in-game adjustments better. But it's not just about the system. You've got to have the team prepared to make those adjustments, and they have to understand, the different adjustments and flexibility there.
Let's talk about a wing ball screen specifically then. So what are some ways with that wing ball screen that you can change it, you can do different things to be able to help it be more flexible?
What we like to do is start with just the basic part of it, is just reading the game. So we work hard in practice to help our players, both the bigs and the guards, and the players, spotting up and holding spacing. And, I think it's important that everyone read the game. So, obviously you get into a side pick and roll. Who's into the pick and roll situation? Is it a 5-man that's going to dive or a 5-man that's going to pop? Is it a 4-man that's most of the time going to pop? I think that you're looking at how is the defense reacting? Are they in a hard show? Are they going to switch it? Can you create a mismatch and try to post up or create a driving opportunity? Are you playing against a team with a 5-man that's going to ice and try to keep the ball on the side? Is it like a zero coverage situation where they're not even going to cover it? They're just going to be like, zero, we're not going to cover that play. So I think the flexibility starts with reading the game and getting the players to read the game and read the coverage so they can make the adjustment on their own. But then the next step you get into is, all right, if it's a side pick and roll, and they're locked up to guard it in a certain way, maybe you end up saying, okay, we're going to come to a different formation and we're going to run the same side pick and roll. We're going to get to the second side of the play. So I think that it's the timing of the offense, it's the reading the game, and I think that these are the things that you want to have. Is it's not just the side pick and roll, but you have several side pick and rolls built into your offense that, in different areas and different ways you get into them, that if they really lock down and take one away, you say, okay, yeah, we're going to go to this.
Yeah. And again, so we've talked a little bit about this concept of practicing reads and how to actually practice them. So I imagine your practices are largely offense versus defense in terms of, again, trying to develop this flexibility has to do with their ability to be able to play live versus, certain types of defenses. But then there's this whole thing that, well, this is how we defend ball screen and we're not going to change it. But then you never get that chance to be able to work against different ball screen coverages. I assume flexibility applies to how you practice as well, that you're working versus all these different coverages.
Yeah, without a doubt. And it's basic fundamental teaching points, coaching points. We start our practices with walkthroughs. So you're walking things through and you're explaining things and you're going through different details. We'll go through some situations live and we'll go through some situations what we call active. And in active, it's you're going through at pace, you're going through at tempo, you're trying to create, as much of a game-like situation as possible. One of the things that I really like to do is a drill we call 55-50, which can be used for offense, but it's mostly like a defensive drill. You're working on, it's an active drill. You're not live, but you're going through at pace, at tempo, the exact game situations you're going to see. And then from that 5-on-5 defensive situation, you convert just 5-on-0 offense, just get the guys up and down, and then the team switch 5-on-5. The team that was on offense converting comes back and plays the situation on offense. The defensive team goes through your defensive coverage, your defensive principles. So it's kind of like an really active review. And what you try to make it is as game-like a situation as the players are going to see, so that when they see it in the game, they react better to it. So this has been a drill that we've kind of used to work on these different adjustments. For example, you'll have a horns play, a horn set play, and you're going to have different coverages, on the elbow pick and roll. So you go through the play 2 or 3 times depending on the pick and roll coverages. Maybe you've got, 5-man, you're going to be in a flat show, 4-man, you're going to be in a hard show, and then we're going to trap it. And then so you in this 55-50 drill, you've got the 3 coverages, 3 plays in a row. And in between, you've got the teams converting, going through some type of offensive transition, 5-on-0, coming back down. So I think it's a pretty efficient drill that has really helped us work on our adjustments over the years.
No, I love that. I love that. That just that ability to be able to get to the point of what you want to work on in a game-like way. So it's really good stuff. So, Coach, you've used the term zero coverage before. Can you explain that? Because when you explained it to me previously, I thought that's a really good way of saying it and an effective way to communicate it. Can you talk about what that means?
Yeah, so not all pick and roll coverages help you to cover. Sometimes you make more problems for yourselves defensively if you do have pick and roll coverage. And the easy example to understand is a drag pick and roll. Now, let's say your transition defense is strong enough to stop the ball early outside of the scoring area. So your point guard is leveled off the ball, he squared him up, and the guard is nowhere near shooting range. So now the 5-man sprints into a pick and roll in transition. Now your 5-man is already back in the paint, transition D for this example. And his situation is, if he sprints now up to touch in pick and roll coverage, now he becomes really vulnerable to a guard attacking him downhill, getting into the paint, creating rotation, and then your defense is in trouble. So in this situation, you just tell your 5-man, if that pick and roll the drag pick and roll in transition takes place outside of the scoring area, the 5-man's just yelling 0, 0, 0, which communicates to the guard that he's on his own out there. He has to beat the screen, even if he chases it over the top, which, ordinarily you say you try to avoid or whatever. If he chases him, then he still has to try to get back and level him off and recover on his own, because your 5-man's in the paint. The other example could be, for example, it's a ball reversal situation and the 4-man catches it at the top and he's in a dribble handoff in a set play that you've game planned for. And he's going to dribble handoff on the backside. And here comes the wing. The wing is coming up. And let's say you've said to the wing, hey, we want you to get into his body and knife over the top and blow up the ball screen or blow up the handoff. So here's the dribble handoff, and your 4-man, instead of coming out in a hard show, he's going to say, for this example, he's going to take the handoff and dribble into a middle pick and roll, dribble handoff fist situation. So now the 4-man is like 0, 0, 0. He tells him there's no coverage, and he's kind of just like a cushion, like a safety net there. He's sliding with his man. He has his coverage on his man, but he's not applying any pick and roll coverage. Your guard break, let's say he gets through the handoff on time, and now the next situation happens. You're in your pick and roll coverage. Your 4-man is more efficient not covering that screen, so he just says, hey, 0 coverage.
I loved it. I love the way that you phrase it. It's just effective, concise communication, but also the understanding of the value of that and understanding that you don't always have to commit in coverage. Coach, dribble handoff are the rage. I assume, you play against a lot of dribble handoffs. I think at all levels, that's kind of the next frontier. Probably more dribble handoffs in some cases than ball screen. So what are some ways that you defend the dribble handoffs?
Dave Smart is one of the best coaches in the world, and now you can learn from him with never before available access. 3 all-access practices and 1 defensive coaching clinic are available at davesmartbasketball.com. What makes these all-access practice and clinic videos so unique? Dave Smart has won 12 national championships and has a winning percentage of 92%. Dave Smart's force weak hand defensive system is world-renowned and has never been shared in this way before. Dave Smart has a winning record in over 50 games versus NCAA Division I teams, having beaten Wichita State, Baylor, Wisconsin, and many others. Dave Smart is recognized by Jay Wright, Mick Cronin, Jay Triano, and many other top coaches in the world as one of the best minds in basketball. Learn from one of the greatest minds in the game who opened his doors and shared the game with us from one of the most successful basketball programs in the world. Go to davesmartbasketball.com now to learn more and to purchase all 4 videos.
So I think a lot of things depend on know your personnel, who's in the dribble handoff. And the second point is where the dribble handoffs take place. So let's say we have a dribble handoff situation that is in the scoring area. And again, the base point for us is we have a ball pressure step off slide through situation, which is like a let through, get through, which our terminology, again, to be precise and short, things that I've learned from my time around Brad Stevens is whip, the terminology.
Yeah.
So again, the main point is
Coach, can you just explain whip for those that don't know it?
Yes. So in a game, like you just said, the 0, you want to be as concise and easy as communication as possible. So for example, if the defender guarding the cutter that's running in to receive the ball in the dribble handoff, we say to him, get into the body so that you stay connected to him and stay on his body. And as he's coming in to take the ball, you have a choice. You can knife through, which would be kind of squeeze between the handoff and the player, or you can kind of go under, which would be like a let through, get through situation. But it's difficult to say in a game. Let through, get through, let through, get through. So instead of making it difficult, the communication becomes simple. It's knife, 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 or whip, whip, whip. And then the players can communicate on the court. Now, we also try to do is communicate by how we guard a certain screen, by how we, like for example, if a player is receiving a screen into the screen, the handoff or the pick and roll situation, if he locks and trails, then we want to try to have him stay on the high side and direct the ball that way. So we want to try to keep it consistent with how we're guarding all the way through from, the beginning where we get into the body to stay connected. We want to have everybody on the same page. Is he knifing over the top of that dribble handoff? Is he going to whip it and go underneath? Again, if it's a knife situation, it's usually a flat show on the backside. If the guy curls it hard and engages the big, then the guard is going to veer back and get into the body of the cutter, the big man that handed the ball off. So all of these defensive details are things that we really practice and that we really work on. It's not good enough just to say, okay, we're going to knife every dribble handoff or we're going to whip every dribble handoff.
Right.
You've got to be able to practice those different situations and practice your adjustments so that you're good at them.
It's great stuff and great detail to be able to help coaches. And another thing that happens a little bit more internationally is the flexibility within a defensive system to go into situational denial. Is that something that you guys use too in certain situations, whether it's which catches at certain locations or denying certain players in certain situations as well? That the flexibility to be able to go away from your core defense to be able to deny in certain situations.
Yeah, so there's certain situations that we want to try to deny. We try to really ball pressure and deny the elbow catches for the bigs. There's other situations that we try to deny. But I think that, look, in college basketball, everybody's talking about the pack line defense. In the NBA, people are talking about shrinking the floor. I think it's difficult if you're going to be a positional shrink or pack line type team where you're talking about packing the paint and also getting out to deny. So you have to pick your spots. Now, if you're fundamentally at heart a team that's going to try to shrink the floor, there's got to be times where you have some adjustments where you come out and pressure. And some of the things that we've liked to do with Poland over the years has been first, our pick and roll coverage for the most part has been with our big soft. Now, these Polish players have been trained and coached, and they have the ability to hard show a pick and roll. So this is something that I love as a one-game adjustment. Team scouts you, they prepare you, they're preparing for you. They're watching you, and they say, oh, the big men, they ice the pick and roll, and then they're flat show in the middle, or they drop pick and roll coverage in the middle. Yet one game, you come out and hard show with that 5. I think that can be a great adjustment for your team. Now, there's some things you need to do along with that adjust your, to help your defensive coverage. But that in itself can change, that little adjustment can make a big difference in terms of getting your defense engaged and also surprising your opponent a little bit.
I was just going to say that flexibility seems so important, especially dealing with the level of players that you have to, you to compete against. Like one player goes off and makes 2 shots on you or different things like that, then, you can't let that player make the third one essentially, or you can't let teams go on, 8 possession run or 8-point runs, right? Like it's these different things that change the flow.
Yeah, you have to have different adjustments that you can go to throughout your situation. So it's simple. Are you, the first thing, you got your base pick and roll covered. So let's say you're playing against a pick and pop shooting 4, or shooting 5. Okay, we're going to have our base pick and roll coverage. Then, this guy's hitting shots. So are you able to switch it? If you switch it, is there going to be a mismatch? If there's a mismatch, are they going to post? And then do you need to double? Or is it a pick and pop situation where are you able to just stunt at the guy? Or do you need to have a full rotation at him? Is it a situation where it's a guy coming off a screen? Can you try to top lock him and deny him and send him to a different side? Do you need to switch the screens away from the ball? I think all of these little adjustments have to be built into your system. And, I think that, again, the better that a team practices these things, the better they're going to have a chance to execute them in a game, And you can't just, as a coach, blame it on the players. These guys can't do this. These guys aren't good enough to do this. No, it's players are smart. Players will adapt and they will learn and they will grow. You've got to continually work with them, whether it's practice repetitions, whether it's the game situation experiences, watching the video together, but you have to give them a clear picture for what you want. And then you've got to be able to have these adjustments built into your system. And to me, this is the fun part of coaching, creating that complete system that, hey, this guy is really good at this. Well, let's try to take it away. Or if he's beaten us at this, we need to do something else. Let's change it up to try to eliminate it. So I think that versatility and flexibility of your system, again, is really, really critical for a team and a coach's success.
Oh, I love it. And so the other thing that we talked about, and I want to bring it out there because I've never heard a coach say this before, even though I think this happens a lot, and I'm a firm believer in this, is that we've talked about that you can run something that you haven't worked on in practice. And yeah, maybe that depends on the level a little bit, but I think there's this great fear that we have to work on something about, 100 times before it can be used in a game. But if you practice in an environment that allows you, as you've talked about already, to develop this flexibility within that 55-50 drill or all these different things, your players are learning how to play. So you're saying that because of that, that gives you flexibility also to be able to coach in some of these unscripted moments and get them to run things that they haven't done before.
Yeah, one of the things I love about the Polish national team is dealing with some of the really high-level IQ players. There's an example I have of Adam Wyszynski, who plays for Unicaja Malaga in the Spanish ACB. He's been in the EuroLeague, Euro Cup. He's really made himself into a high-level player, really smart. And what I love is seeing him use the framework and structure of our system. Is we put the system in place, and then you let him read the game, and you let him play and make decisions and do things. And just a simple example that we have is there was an elevator screen that we set for Adam. And by the way the defense was playing, the 4-man was trying to take it away. And our 4-man, also a guy, Aaron Sell, could really shoot, plays for Torun in Poland. So Adam is running this elevator play, and, he's supposed to get the shot through the elevator screen, but he reads the defense and he bumps it. So he sends the 4-man Aaron Sell out to an open area. Okay, he unselfishly gave up his shot for his teammate, but it was the right play because of the way the defense was covering it. And we got a wide open 3 for Aaron Sell. And this was like his intelligence being on display in the system, right? So I think that there's these moments where really, really smart players can handle those circumstances and those situations. Now, not every player is ready for that. Not every player, it can handle it. But I think that there's definite moments where you can draw up a play or draw up a set or draw an adjustment and talk about something, and guys at halftime or in a timeout or whatever, you can get a high-level player to do something that you haven't practiced. Now, why do coaches want to practice things all the time? Because the more you practice it, the more chance players are going to respond and read the game and do the right thing for the situation. But when you have these really high-level players, like a national team guy that is playing high-level basketball every single week, you've got to give those guys some freedom and some flexibility within your system to make some things happen.
Well, and I know we're not supposed to mess with the game as coaches to a certain extent, but if you're a youth coach and you're coaching, then part of the advantage of this too is that you learn how to communicate. I think there's no better practice communicating than drawing up an ATO or a new play for your players that they haven't seen before to see if you can communicate it properly as well. So I think there's value to this at other levels. And I think I developed a lot as a coach just by experimenting sometimes in those moments. And again, I was never afraid to drop something a little bit different, again, based on the flow of the game or based on a player. So it's great to hear. It's great to hear. And I think coaches will just discount this as saying, oh, well, you're coaching a national team, you can do it. But I think you can do it at a lot of levels if you practice the right way. So this connects back to your practice style as well, though, right? In terms of doing a lot of offense versus defense.
Yeah, 100%. You're again, it's the whole package. You know, you're spending time watching video with the players. You're walking through things. You're teaching them how to read the game and how to play together. I think this is the important thing. One thing we like to do in helping players trying to read the game is, okay, people have their 5-on-0 sets, and whatever they're doing, they're running their set plays and reviewing them. We always do a 5-on-0 set, and we call it 5-on-0 pop, where it's play off penetration. So now you have 5-on-0 set play from whatever your set play is. Shot isn't there after you exhaust your option. So now the player has to create, and now he's dribble penetrating or he's putting the ball in the post, and now you're playing off penetration or post reaction. And again, the players are learning to play together. They're, okay, I'm in this situation, the ball goes here. How do I play? What do I do? And I think players need that freedom. The other thing about the freedom and flexibility within your offense and having that versatility is now when teams start to pressure you defensively, you've got to have something to go to. There's got to be a part of your offense that is not so structured. And the point for me would be old school basketball in Europe used to be the 24-second shot clock, A to B to C to D, structured set play offense. You know, for us, we like to be an early offensive team where we get right into what we want to get into so the players have that chance to attack and play together. So if you want a side pick and roll or transition pick and roll, whatever, early, you get the players in it you want, the floor spacing you want, you get the post touch you want if you want that, a screen for a player, and then give the guys time in the shot clock to attack the defense creatively. You know, like one of the big adjustments with our recent ProA championship run in the playoffs, we beat a team, Chemnitz, that was in first place all year. They were up 2-1 in the playoffs on us. Our adjustments in games 4 and 5 were transition, pace and transition, and then they were pressuring us and taking us out of our sets. So we basically said, okay, we're going to identify 1 or 2 guys on your team who we feel we can beat off the dribble. We set our small pick and rolls and went right at these guys, got the matchups we want, broke them down off the dribble, and really created good shots together. To me, this is, I think, got to be a part of a team's offense because it's not always going to be your set plays are going to work. You've got to have something else to go to. And this is the importance of teaching players to read the game and play together. And again, goes how you practice. You know, you're not, we're going through our sets. We're running our offense 5-on-0. We're going through all of the different aspects that we could face, and you're growing your team and developing your team to be good at all of these different adjustments as the game would dictate.
Yeah, it's just so true. I mean, when you said 5-on-0 pop playoff penetration, like that's an example of a constraint for coaches that follow this a little bit. And you could do that 5-on-5 too. You could run your offense until there's a pop situation, whatever you said in terms of designating the matchup or these different things like that, which is another great way to be able to get coaches comfortable running their reps. Because I think that's what coaches like sometimes have this fear. Oh, we're not running our offensive reps enough, so our players memorize. But the reality is adding this pop, this simple playoff penetration concept, allows your players to break off and still be structured in their understanding. And How much time do you spend on this penetration reaction?
Well, you know, we do a lot of different breakdown drills with our post and perimeter stuff. I think the guys will, you know, at the heart of it, we try to keep it really simple, but we want them just to improve the passing lanes, improve the passing angles, be a target for their teammate all the time. So whether it's pre-practice drills with the guards or the bigs, whether it's the 5-on-0 pop, whether it's all of these little situations that we try to create, it's just that I think there's times in the game where players just have to play together. And that's the beauty of the game, that things happen and it's just players have to play and be able to make plays. And your team has to be ready when it's a player's game. It's not always a coach's game. When it's a player's game where guys are out there because of pressure, because of situations, and they got to go make a play or make a play together. So these situations, help you prepare for that.
Coach, what are some trends internationally that you're seeing that, maybe you're not seeing as much when you're watching the NCAA or NBA? Not that you get a lot of time to do that probably either, but what are some things that maybe that you think can help coaches anywhere, but certainly that maybe we're not seeing much over in North America?
Well, I think that it just depends. With the national teams, you have some interesting countries. Some of the countries by nature have to play small, and they develop their own style of play. The one team that I want to point to is Iceland. Craig Peterson has done such a great job with the Iceland team over the last few years. But what I like about it the most is their own style, their own unique way of playing, because they're undersized and they've got shooting in all 5 positions. I think that this is really unique to me, that you have countries like Iceland or Estonia or some of these smaller, population countries that have really kind of developed their own unique style of basketball, which I really love to see. I think that obviously, what you're seeing in Europe is a trend towards really small, athletic, mobile big men, really undersized bigs. We've played Italy in the last couple of windows, and they had a former player of ours in Ulm, Christian Burns, who we played as a power forward, and he's gone to be a 5. Romeo Travis played for us in Ulm as a 3, and he finished his career, the last few years in France playing as a 5. So I think, coaches in Europe are starting to really put smaller lineups out there with undersized bigs that are mobile, that can rebound their position, but I think they want to have that mobility and things out there. So I think the trend is definitely away from the traditional center, the traditional 5. In my experiences working with the traditional 5, John Bryant in Ulm played at Santa Clara. He's been a great player overseas, true 5. And then most recently with Poland before his injuries, Przemek Karnowski from Gonzaga. There's definitely a place on the roster for these 5s, these traditional old school big men. But the main point now is that the role is shrinking because teams are playing with more and more perimeter-oriented 5s that can shoot the 3. You have to have that ability to cover the 3-point line. And if you have a 5-man that can only guard in the paint, that's a limitation. And I think that, those matchups for those true 5s, it's not as common as it once was a few years ago.
And I know so many coaches are going to be really excited to be able to watch the World Cup, because I think that's the one time, whether, it's the Euros or the World Cup or the Olympics, that I think coaches get exposed to all these different styles. And I experienced it a little bit last summer playing against, in the Jones Cup, coaching against Korea and Japan and some of these countries, in Korea in particular, the Philippines as well, that just the ball movement and the player movement off the ball on post entries or even on penetration. That was the first time I really saw that, how many teams just did a great job off the ball and empowering their weak side off of penetration. So it's just fascinating. So I know coaches are excited to watch that and to watch Poland as well. So Coach, what are we going to see when we watch Poland? If you were to describe it, what would coaches see when they watch Poland this summer?
So Polish national team is a strong core. I think we're battle tested. We've been together for 6 years. We've been through successful times. We've been through tough times. We've got a team that loves to play together. We've got a bunch of guys that, like I said, I'm really proud that they were the ones that they can, they'll be remembered for the rest of their lives that have achieved something big to get to the World Cup. We've got a next generation players that are team-oriented, that are hungry. They got a great will to win. Mateusz Panika, again, Adam Waczynski, some of the younger generation players that have established themselves. Offensively, as I say, we're a transition team more so than other European countries and other European teams. I think we're a team that really plays well together. We play team basketball. It's not like we come out in old school Poland, just emphasize one player. No, we emphasize a team. I think we play interesting basketball in terms of, we'll play with 2 point guards at times. We can play big in the front court. We can play with a shooting 4, stretch 4. So I think we've got some versatility. We'll post bigs, we'll post guards. We do a lot of different things offensively. Defensively, I think it's a fundamental system. I really worked hard on my coaching game during my 2 years, around the Celtics, spending time with Doc Rivers and his staff, learning defensive system that he has run for years. And, I kind of took a lot of those ideas then since, the year around Brad and his staff, and kind of formulated this defensive system for Poland, which has been really good for us. So, I've just really enjoyed the whole experience with these guys, and I'm really proud that we've been able to accomplish something big, get on the big stage. And, now you look at the games, the first game against Venezuela, also a tough, physical, aggressive team, battle-tested as well. Then we played the host China, and finally Ivory Coast. So the great thing is, as you've experienced, basketball is different all over the world, and there's little different, styles here and there. And that's the one thing that's going to be so much fun about the World Cup, is seeing teams from all over the world playing their game, playing their way, and, seeing how we can do. I got a lot of confidence in our team. So 5 of the 8 top teams in the World Cup came from Europe. We've competed against them all. Lithuania and Italy came from our group. Over the last years, we've played, Russia and all these good teams, and France and Spain and everything. And so, I got confidence our guys are going to show up, and then I just hope we can be our best when it matters the most. I hope that's kind of, the way our team plays. I hope that plays out this September in Beijing.
Well, it's going to be fun to watch. And Coach, one last thing. I've been told by a few people that you do an exceptional job with the team building piece. And you've talked about a little bit about positivity. You've talked about a little bit about, just the way the deliberate structure of how you've set up training camp and everything else that goes along with developing the Polish national team, but certainly reflecting on Hamburg as well. What are some practical things that you've done to bring your team together? Because again, you're dealing with a diverse group of people from different clubs, different places. What are some of the practical things that you do? Because it's not all about going bowling or having a team dinner. What are some of the practical things?
Yeah, I think that, I'm a positive person by nature, so I try to create a really positive environment, try to have players really love to come to the gym, try to keep it entertaining for them. So, there's lots of action, lots of jokes, lots of fun stuff going on. We try to play a lot of music during our workouts and things, and keep the energy in the gym high. I feel like with our guys, we try to build a relationship with, make sure everything's healthy with players, player to coach, coach to coach, coach to player, all the way through. We try to value everyone, the star players, the role players, the young players. We try to treat everybody with respect. And, like I said, just try to create an environment where they love to come to the gym and have fun. And again, the task-oriented part about helping players improve, skill development, learning the game, being better in their role with the team, all these different situations. You just try to work as best you can with all of those things. And I think that, if you create a relationship with people and you work and you have patience and you're positive and support them, I think that is the energy that kind of feeds on itself that leads a team to success.
Oh, it's great. And, we're going to see that on full display this summer, Coach. So I can't thank you enough for spending some time with us. And, I think you will make a lot of people interested observers of Polish basketball, but as well as you as a coach. So thank you for taking the time and spending with us.
I appreciate it, Chris, and happy to talk basketball and really with people that are motivated and love the game. So I really thank you for giving me a chance to come on and talk a little basketball today.
Basketball Immersion is one-stop shopping for video learning to stimulate your basketball coaching using evidence-based practices. Watch hundreds of videos covering BDT shooting, 0-second skills training, how we teach using small-sided games and a games approach to coaching, as well as team concepts and systems like trail trap, flow offense, two-sided fast break, and much, much more. NCAA, NBA, pro, high school, and youth coaches are amongst the thousands of coaches who are a part of our community. Go to basketballimmersion.com today to stimulate your basketball coaching.
To find out more about Coach and all we spoke about today, please take a look at the show notes for today's episode. I love to share the game and have basketball coaching conversations, so connect with me on social media. You can find all my social media information and all your membership, clinic, and consulting needs at basketballimmersion.com. That concludes today's episode. I know there are so many podcasts out there. Thank you for taking the time to listen to the Basketball Podcast with me, your host, Chris Oliver. Please subscribe and share the podcast with your friends and colleagues so that we can keep bringing you the best of what's out there and share the game.